Okay. So let's. Yeah, we've already done that problem, so let's go to the next problem and start with our PRRs, which is where we would start normally anyhow. So, we are on page 18, letter B?
Yeah.
Okay, now, here's the deal. You look at this problem, and you know that you need to get it factored. You have done enough factoring by grouping, hopefully, to kind of look at that and say, no, I don't think that's going to factor by grouping. Agreed?
Yep.
That number really messes everything up, right? It had an 11 stuck in the middle. So, we know there are going to be 3 factors, but we have no idea what they are. So we're going to have to guess. I don't know, maybe let's try, I don't know, x minus 1 or something, I don't know. Well, to narrow down our guesses, we have what are called the possible rational roots, PRRs, possible rational roots. And they are always factors of the constant, and the constant term is the last term right here. This is the constant. So factors of the constant over factors of the leading coefficient, which is right here. So in our problem, the constant is a 6. So the factors of 6, that is the numbers that go into 6, are 6, 3, 2, 1. And notice plus or minus. Because if you divide a number, like if you take 6 and divide it by -2, it goes in evenly. If you divide it by +2, it goes in evenly. So you have to consider the positive and the negative. Luckily for us, our leading coefficient is 1. So our possibilities are 6, 3, 2, and 1, plus or minus. So instead of having infinitely many numbers to guess from, we really only have 8. 8 numbers to guess from. So, Evan, guess one. What do you think one of the I said Evan. What do you think one of the factors is?
3.
So, x minus 3?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to step over to the side, and I'm going to do my division. And if Evan guessed correctly, what has to happen? That right there will be a 0. So let's see. Here we go. This is why we need to know how to do synthetic division. Oh my golly! You're amazing. Good work.
Mathematician.
So he guessed x minus 3, and it worked. Obviously, if you don't get a 0 here, you have to guess a different one. And you keep guessing from this list until you get one that works. So he got, if I divided right, he got one that works right off the bat. Okay, who remembers where we go from here? Jalen?
You could factor the trinomial.
Exactly. The trinomial that's left. This is, do you remember, this is called the depressed polynomial. Did they tell you that last year? Anyway, if you factor what's left, which is x squared minus 3x plus 2, remember we reduced the power by 1, so the original was a cube, so this is now a squared. Does that trinomial factor x
plus 2, or minus 2.
Minus 2,
X minus 1.
minus 1. So the other two factors are minus 2 and minus 1. So we only have to guess one of them. The other two will come out of the synthetic division. Have I done anything confusing? Are we all good with that? All right, let's sketch it, because that's what the directions said to do. We factored it so we could sketch it. Where are my zeros, or my x-intercepts? 1, 2, and 3. And no matter how many times I harp on this, some of you aren't labeling. Please make sure you label those points. This is a cubic polynomial. Starts down, ends up, right? Nothing appears to be squared or anything, right? So we're just gonna connect all the dots and pass through everything. So here we go. Connect, pass through, connect, pass through. There it is. Yep. Anybody have an issue with that? You okay? All right, let's look at the next one. This is big people math, kids. You're doing real math here. It's not hard. I'm in race though. Everybody good? Yep. All right, so the next problem. Here we go. Same thing. The other day, we did quite a few factoring by grouping problems. Do you think a factoring by grouping problem could be done with this guessing method? Yes. So, you never have to factor by grouping. If you would rather guess and do this process, that will work every time. Sometimes it takes longer than factoring by grouping does, but you can do this every single problem. All right? So let's start. We know it doesn't factor by grouping. We had a discussion in a class yesterday where they wanted to factor it because they said, well, we can group that. And you're absolutely right. You can group it. But what? The parentheses don't match. And kids, that's the key. If you're going to factor by grouping, the parentheses have to match. So being able to do it doesn't matter. You have to have matching parentheses. So that's not going to work. So I'm going to guess. I know I have 3 factors, and I'm going to guess them, or guess one of them anyway. And Maddie, you look like you're barely awake, honey child. What are my PRRs, my possible rational roots?
1, 18, 2, 9, 3, 6.
I'll tell you what, sometimes when the number's big, no, you're okay. I think maybe you were doing this in your head, but when the number's big like that, and so you've got 1 times 18, and 2 times 9, and 3 times 6. So if that's what you were thinking, you were right on target. That's exactly right. Those are the factors of 18. And again, our leading coefficient is 1. That is good news. Because, gang, if it were, let's say, a 2, then you would have 2 and 1 down here, which means that not only would you have 3 over 1, but you would also have 3 over 2 as a possibility.
Yep.
So that really increases your possibilities when you have something other than a 1 out in front. This one has enough. All right, let's see. We got lucky last time. Let's let somebody else guess. Monica, you got an idea? 2. So you want x plus 2 or x minus 2? X plus 2. She wants to try x plus 2. Now, what goes in the box now when I check this? Negative 2. Oh, darn. Did I make a mistake?
No.
All right, well, I got it up here. Let's try positive 2 and see what happens. Oh, that was better. That was better. So we'll make this a minus 2. Did I do that too fast? Did everybody follow what was happening there?
Yeah. Yep.
What?
Nothing.
How annoying that is. Oh well, okay. So what am I left with here?
The trinomial
X squared plus 6x
plus 9.
plus 9? which hopefully will factor for me. How does that factor? X plus 3, x plus 3.
Yep.
That's going to be a squared, kid. So when I write it up here, not that x plus 3 is wrong, but it will help me graph it if I understand that's a squared on there, because I need to graph this thing. And I know that makes a difference in my graph, right? So x plus 3, I'm going to write this way. And then I'm going to sketch it. So negative 3 and 2.
Start down.
It is a cube again. So it starts, I erased it, but it starts down and goes up, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to start down here. Now be careful. That came from a squared factor. So it has to bounce off, connect to this one, and go straight through.
Yep.
And there is your picture. All right. Joyous good news. There's one more. All right. So do I have a volunteer to come up and do it on the board? And I will want you to start by writing out the PRRs. So we'll want to make a list of those first. And then I want you to find the factors, just like we've been doing. So does anybody feel energetic this morning and would like to give that a try? And there's room for more than one if we have too many volunteers. Well, do it at your seats. Do it at your seats. See how far you can get with it.
I'll do it for
Is this a nice problem?
Yes.
Why is this such a great problem? There aren't very many PRRs, right? So you don't have many guesses. Plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 7. That's it, right? So start guessing. Ava and Maddie, focus. Did you find one?
No, like, maybe. One. Like one, I think I probably did this wrong, but I got a negative and it was her remainder.
Okay, we do not want a remainder, we need 0. So pick a different number. Or did you try them all?
I think I messed up. So,
Oh, okay, so what did you try?
so like I did one.
Positive 1.
Okay.
Now, if Magnus is trying positive 1, his factor is x minus 1, right? I don't know if this works. This is what Magnus is trying. So Magnus, I'm doing my multiplication. Oh, I think you're right, Magnus.
Yeah, you did exactly like I did it.
7 words.
Okay, so I didn't get a remainder though. Okay, so that means this is a factor. Now, what is left here? Magnus? X squared.
Weird, wait,
X squared minus
minus
8x plus 7. The powers just go down. Like in the original, when I wrote down the original numbers, this was cubed, squared, x number. So now it's squared x number. It goes down 1 power. Now, what about this guy? Does he factor?
Yeah.
X minus 7 minus 1. Now wait, I already have a 1 here, so I think I'll put a squared on that. So these are my factors. Did anyone find those on your own?
Yeah.
positive, well, wait, positive 7 here works. Is that what you're saying?
No, I put a negative 7 in there.
Positive.
Negative 7 works? It shouldn't. Let's try it. It
Unless I did
shouldn't.
my math.
Oh no, it's not gonna work. Look how big that's gonna get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I must have put the pain on.
All right, everybody good with those factors then?
Yep.
So here we go. We have dots at 1 and 7. It's a regular old cube, so it's coming in from the bottom. What's it do when it gets to 1?
Bounces off.
Bounces off. The next. And goes through. Everybody good? All right, we already did part 5, so let's look at part 6 now. Page 19. Is x minus 1 a factor of this? Okay, now wait a minute. Shh, guys. Is x, I'm on page 19, is everybody looking at it?
Yeah.
How would I tell if something is a factor or not? Do synthetic division, because if something is a factor, what happens? There's no remainder. So what goes in the box? 1, negative 1, negative 4, 4. What's the answer to the question?
Yeah.
Yes. Why?
Because you don't have a remainder.
Because you don't have a remainder. That's it.
How would you write that out with a 0?
You just don't have an x term, so it'd be x squared minus 4 is what's left. Which would factor if we needed to do it, but we don't need to do that. We just want to know, can I divide it in evenly?
So when you put it as an explanation, like for y or
So when your answer is, when I divided, I did not get a remainder. Or it divided in evenly. All right, do B for me. Do B on your own, what'd you get? Let's try to pay attention. Uh-oh, did you notice you got missing power?
We skipped cubed, 0 to 0.
Did you notice that? That matters.
Wait, what do you?
There's no cubed in problem B. Make sure you paid attention to that. Uh-oh, doesn't look good. Did I divide right? So the answer to the question, is this a factor?
No.
No. And the reason is,
You have remainder of 45.
you have I have 15.
That's what I meant.
Negative 15. I have a remainder of negative 15. And if it's going to be a factor, it must divide in with no remainder, right?
Yep.
Okay. Number 7. Do you have an idea about how we would do this problem?
You factor by grouping.
Plug in. I'd say synthetic.
Okay, I'm hearing a lot of great ideas.
Plug in negative.
One idea was I heard factor by grouping. I don't think that's going to factor by grouping. So obviously, if you want to factor by grouping and it factors by grouping, go ahead. I don't think it does. I heard somebody else say synthetic division.
By negative 1. You just use the x.
So what if I'm gonna do synthetic division,
Is that an X minus?
what am I gonna put out here in the box?
Can't you do that an X minus something?
What do you think?
Or one?
1. Because Jalen, when we say x equals 1, that means when we graph this thing, 1 comma 0 is a dot on the graph. And if that's the dot on the graph, then that's the number that goes in here. What's going to happen when I do this division? What am I going to get?
A 0.
And I know I'm going to get a 0 because they tell me that this is a 0. This is a factor. X minus 1 is a factor. They tell me that in the problem. So if I divide it out, I'm going to get no remainder. How do I find the other 2 factors then? Right here. Right here. This is where they come from. So 3x squared plus 7x plus 2. Now you got to figure out how that factors.
2 and 1.
So it's got to be 2 and 1. And it's got to be
X plus 2. And then
x
3x
and
plus
3x.
1.
So that when we FOIL, we get x and 6x. That adds up to 7x. Back when that crazy first-year algebra teacher was teaching you how to factor and you didn't want to do it, boy, you really needed to pay attention because that's an important skill. So the other factors are x plus 2, 3x plus 1. Now, that wasn't the question though. What are the zeros? In other words, where would the dots be for this problem? I know one of them's at 1.
-2.
So we're going to have another one at -2.
And one at negative 1/3.
Negative 1/3. Oh, they can be fractions, guys, and in this case they are.
Yeah.
So the roots, the zeros, the other ones are at negative 1/3 and 2. How did we get negative 1/3? We set that equal to
0.
Right? Everybody follow all those steps? All right, there's another one. It says 8 is a 0 of this polynomial. Find the other ones. So we are trying to find all of the zeros, but they tell me that one of the zeros is 8, which means one of my factors is x minus 8. So, Bo, my friend, how do I proceed?
Alright, so what you're gonna want to do is synthetic
Yes, I'm going to do synthetic division. And what am I going to put out here in the box?
I'm gonna put 8.
I am going to put it 8. So here we go. And what better happen here on the end game?
0.
Better be a 0. Better be a 0. And sure enough, there it is. So Ava, Bo has convinced us that we need to divide out the 8, so that's what we did. We got our 0, which is exactly what we knew had to happen. Where do I go from here?
You put the 1 for -12 into equation.
So what would it be?
1x squared plus 4x minus 12.
Perfect. And then what do I do with that?
Factor
Yep. Do you see how that one factors by any chance?
x minus 3. No, yeah.
You have to get 12
-6 and 2.
minus minus 6 minus 2.
Other way.
Other way.
Plus 6 minus 2.
Plus 6 minus 2. Plus 6 minus 2. Is she right?
Yeah.
So those are the other two factors, which means what are the other two zeros?
Negative 6 and positive 2.
-6 and +2 are the other zeros. So one dot would be at 8, and then you have a dot at -6 and a dot at 2. One more, here we go. Oh, let's have a team. Olivia and Malcolm, would you guys come up and do this problem for us, C7C? And the rest of you, would you work on it at your seat and see if we get the same answer these guys do? Did you have the quiz I turned out yesterday?
It's 3, I know, so.
Yeah. For some reason I didn't have your score written down. Thank you.
Because it tells you it's 3.
Problem done? You don't? Come on, get busy. So you guys, Malcolm and Olivia, what are you saying your final answers are -2 and -5?
Yeah.
What do the rest of you think? Does that look okay? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. I have something for us to do now. And you have it too. So would you get out your practice test that I gave you yesterday?
Are you doing that?
Yep, we're getting ready for a test. Yay, how many days do I have you next week?
Wednesday 5.
You should have gotten one over there.
Day 6.
It was stapled with some other stuff I gave you. It was there, you
I
have
just
it.
used the
Test could be as early as the third time I see you next week. Yep, 2.1 to 2.5.
It's dry.
Is it fine? This is fine. And actually, we've been having quizzes over almost all of this, so we should be pretty good. All right, so here we go. All right, which of the following, this is practice test number 1, which of the following are polynomials? If not, why not? So, next to every problem, you're going to put a yes or no. And then, if it's a no, you're going to explain why. Okay? So, full credit, we say yes or no. And then, if it's a no, we tell why. So is A yes or no?
Yes.
It's a yes. That's a little quadratic polynomial. It's a yes. What about B?
No.
B is a no because why?
It's just in the denominator.
There is a variable in the denominator, right? Practice test number 1. It says it right at the top. All right, C. What's C?
No.
C is a no because it has a variable under the radical. D. Yes. D is a yes. If you say to me, but it has a fraction, I'm going to say to you, it only matters if the variable is in the denominator, right? Fractions with numbers are perfectly okay. Yes, you don't want a fractional exponent either. All right, how about E?
No.
No, because
Negative
it has a
exponent.
negative exponent. Does anyone have a question about part 1? Okay. What's happening in part 2? It
Just on
says
slope.
f of 2 is 3 and f of 4 is 9. And then it says write the linear function. What pops into your head? Linear function.
Points.
Y equals mx plus b. Line, linear. So our points are 2, 3 and 4, 9. So what are we gonna do? Find the slope. So m equals 9 minus 3 over 4 minus 2.
Oh, that's the wrong thing.
Which is 6 over 2, 3. Brooks, you get 3 for your slope.
I did.
What'd you do next?
I used the points 2, 3, and put it in y equals mx plus b, and I got 3 equals 3 times 2 plus b, and I got 3.
You got 3,
I did.
Should've got negative.
negative 3.
That's what I meant.
Okay,
And then y equals 3x minus 3.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Don't forget to write the answer to the problem, which is the equation of the line, which is with your m and your b plugged in. So we found an m, found our b, there it is. Any question about that one? Write the equation of the quadratic function with a vertex at 1, -2 and containing 3, 2. I remember when we did these, but we haven't done them for a while. Who remembers how to write the equation?
And
Ah,
x minus 3 squared plus 2.
be careful.
Or do you?
What goes in here has to be the vertex. So it's going to be x minus 1 squared minus 2.
Yes. And then you plug the other one into minus.
So remember, kids, if you know the vertex, you really know what goes in the parentheses and what hangs out here. Because if you saw this equation, wouldn't you tell me the vertex is 1, -2? So we're just thinking backwards. The vertex is right 1, down 2, so the equation has to look like this. The only thing we're not sure of is what this number out here would be. So we'll take this x and y, and again, in here must be the vertex. This is the one we're going to put in for x and y. So I'll put 2 in for y and 3 in for x. You know what happens over and over again? Kids will put, because that's 3, 2, they'll put 3 here and 2 here. Make sure you're plugging in y for y and x for x. So, let's do the arithmetic. 3 minus 1 is 2, squared is 4. So I have 4n minus 2. Do not combine the 4 and the negative 2. This one has an n. So instead we'll add 2 to both sides. Lo and behold, n equals 1. So the equation that I put in the answer blank is y equals 1, x minus 1 squared minus 2. And since that's a 1, you don't have to put it there. You can do without it, since it's a 1. Is that ringing some bells? Now, remember, the test looks just like this. So you are going to have to write an equation in this form, Vertex form. So we are going to have to remember that process. So let's take a breath for a minute. How do we get this equation into this form?
Negative b over 2a.
No.
You do that plus blank and
Yes, and we call that completing the square. So we're going to complete the square. Before we can do the plus blank thingy, we have to do a couple of things in the equation. What do we have to do here? Divide everything by 2. So I have y over 2 equals x squared plus 8x minus 2. Notice when I divided by 2, I divided everything by 2. Everything. Now wait, I'm not ready to do anything yet. I need to move this. So that 2 is coming over here. Now am I ready? What shall I add?
I think
4.
4?
Wait,
16?
16. Because you take half
Oh, I got
and you
some
square.
nods for 16.
Take half and you square.
I take half of 8, which is 4. Squared is 16. So 16 is what I'm adding to both sides. Are we all paying attention? So over here we got y over 2 plus 18. This factors. It's a little trinomial like you've been factoring all morning. How does that one factor? X plus 4 times x plus 4. So we'll write that x plus 4 squared. Now we're not quite done, but we're almost done. What do we need to do now? Subtract the 18. Okay, so I just brought this 18 over to the side. And when we multiply by 2, we multiply the parentheses, but not what's in it. Don't change what's in it. Just put the 2 out in front of it. And of course, you got to multiply the 18 by 2. The question doesn't ask you for any information. It just says change it into Vertex form. So that actually is the answer, the equation. If you wanted the Vertex, you can get it and all that, but we don't need it. It just says write the equation. You good? All right, number 4. Find the vertex axis of symmetry and direction of opening for this parabola. So this has been on 2 quizzes. We even talked about it today. So we ought to be able to handle this. We need our vertex, axis of symmetry, and direction of opening. Well, first of all, direction of opening is an absolute no-brainer. That number right there is positive, so it's up.
Is this a negative B over 2A?
You can use negative b over 2a. You could also go through this process that we just did. You said, no, I don't need to do that again. So we definitely can do negative b over 2a, which in this problem would be negative 4 over 2, right?
Yeah.
Which is negative 2. So my axis of symmetry is x equals negative 2. So my vertex is negative 2 comma. And how do I find that missing number?
Plug in X.
Plug in negative 2. So if I plug in negative 2, I'll have y equals negative 2 squared plus 4 times negative 2 minus 3. What'd you say you got?
87.
4 minus 8 minus 3 is negative 7. Yep, very good. You're saying, oh my god, this is so boring. No, it's not. It's fun. All right, same thing with B. Let's get B done and then I'll let you escape. Get B done. Equation looks a little bit different. Do not let it worry you. Do what you know how to do. So first of all, it opens up.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And the axis of symmetry is negative b over 2a. What is your b in this problem?
0.
0. So your axis of symmetry is x
So it's
equals
just negative 8.
0.
So your vertex
Which
is
means
0.
your vertex is 0, comma,
Negative 8.
and it's negative 8.
Bang.
That should make sense to you because there's nothing in the parentheses, so it hasn't moved sideways. It's only gone down. All right, hang on a minute. Good luck to everybody who's got stuff going this weekend.
You go into the game.